Hi, I'm Brian B. from the Sunday Night Funnies, and welcome to my first podcast. I guess the working title of this is going to be called Comedy A to Z. So we're going to have different comics on, and we're going to talk about different things related to stand-up comedy. And today's guests are Matt Harper, to my left, your right. Stu McCallister, my right, your left. And I thought we'd talk about, well, first I'll have you guys introduce yourselves and tell everybody what you're all about comedy-wise.
Go ahead, Matt.
All right,
You first.
Matt Harper. I've been doing stand-up comedy for a shade over 6 years now. I've done everything from running an open mic to now I run a ticketed show every 2 months in Hastings, and I mean that's pretty much it. Still plugging away, featuring now pretty regularly and trying to get out on the road and do stuff further away from home.
And you have your own podcast as well.
Yeah, yep. I started a podcast about movies. With a friend of mine. We talk about the movies that shaped our childhood. So it's a bunch of stuff from the 80s and 90s, mostly comedies. And we try to wrangle comedians to come in and talk about movies and what they, how they experience them and what it's done for their life. We just recently
It's a great podcast. I've done it twice.
Yeah,
and it's called?
It's called Another Episode Podcast, and you can find it on all of the places that you find podcasts. And yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
And Stu, what about you?
I'm Stu McCallister. I've been doing comedy, I think, this will be year 16, I think. And I'm trying to quit. I am trying to
You've told me that.
end it, and it keeps dragging me back in. So,
Do you want to quit?
You know, I've talked with a lot of people about it, and I don't want to quit. I don't. I want to quit the business part of it. I just get very agitated with so much that's involved, and I still enjoy performing. I still enjoy writing. I still even enjoy the traveling to East Bum Hill shit town, and it's a good time, but having to deal with the business end of it all.
Right.
It's just a struggle. And I'm finding the older I get, the less I want to. I'm not hungry enough to be like, I got to do this. I got to sacrifice that. And I'm like, I'm getting too goddamn old, right? It's, Glover from Lethal Weapon or whatever?
Oh, yeah. I'm getting too old for this.
Too old for this shit. So, I mean, that's how I feel. But I enjoy it. So I'm trying to do other stuff here in town more, like my podcast as well, too, the Elemental Podcast. Looking to try and produce some of my own shows just here in town, doing what little stuff with Laugh Fest.
Tonight Tonight is dead.
Well, it is.
It is dead, and again, that was more because of like business stuff. There were just some things behind the scenes. I enjoyed it. Matt was the sidekick.
Right.
It was a monthly kind of talk show, which was great. But again, there was just business stuff that I'm like, I don't like dealing with this.
And that was a lot of work you put into that. I mean, your guest, it was a talk show at a bar.
Right.
And you had the desk. It was like Letterman with guests and different bits.
We had the monologue, the skits, the host. We had musical closers, and it was a ton of fun, right?
Yeah.
I had a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But it just was, like you said, a lot of work. There was no kind of like financial payoff. And I had there were some guests who were like, you can make money off of this.
Well, I told you that too.
Well, I was like, I don't know how to do it. I'm pretty stupid. Hence it's not liking the business end.
But
so. I don't. So I mean that can always be revitalized. Whether it's it definitely won't be the same location it was. It would be somewhere else. But I mean that was one of the things of like I was talking to the guys originally. Or like if we could do this weekly, it would be awesome.
Yeah,
but then it becomes again of like there was so much work.
It'd be a full-time job.
Exactly. It's a full-time job where none of us are getting paid.
Right, having to produce those. We were doing like full-on skits, pre-recorded stuff, and producing those ourselves and. Learning as we went, which was an awesome experience, but in the end, it was for nothing. I mean, other than just the sake of having done it and the
Some
fun
laughs,
we were having
the good
doing
times.
it.
Right.
Right.
And all this is a good lead into what I wanted to talk about is misconceptions about comedy and stand-up comedy itself. Because it's people who come out to my show or shows that you've been in, they have this idea of how comedy works, and they're totally off base a lot of times.
Right. Yeah. And I get how they can misconstrue things. I even get like how new guys are like they really don't have an understanding of what comedy is and how like they assume everybody's got a manager. Yeah. And I'm like, no one has a manager until someone thinks they can make money off of you. Once someone thinks they can make money off of Stu McCallister, then they're like, hey, let me manage you. Yeah. But 10% of nothing is still nothing. No one's making money off of me. And I think the majority of comics are that way. Very few comics have managers.
Yeah, I laugh because I've had there's a comic in town, and his manager would get a hold of me and wanted to do my show. I'm like, just have him contact me. He doesn't need you.
Trying to big time you is what it is. Like,
Right.
oh, this guy's got a manager. Yeah. This guy does not have a manager, or he is really, really stupid.
Yeah,
because he's paying a guy money for nothing.
It's his mom, or it's another email address that he also manages.
Or somebody is like, who wants to sound like he's a big shot.
Yep.
I'm a manager.
That was in the infancy of email and the internet and all that stuff. Jeff Foxworthy had like friends and family email the Punchline, the comedy club down in Atlanta, going, I really want to see Jeff Foxworthy, even though he was a nobody doing nothing. And that's kind of like what snowballed things for him, is like he got in because, oh my God, 100 people want to see Jeff Foxworthy, but it was all just people randomly emailing.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was like the start of things for Jeff. You can't do that now, all right? You can't have people go, yeah, I'm his manager, because that's so easy to check out.
Yeah.
Like, who are you and what are you doing? Where are you located? And why are you managing this open micer?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And I can't imagine I could get 100 people to do anything.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
just email.
Yes.
So.
Right now. Yeah. I can't get 3 people to come to a show,
Right.
let alone 100 email somebody for
Right.
me.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing when you first start off. Your friends and family will come out and see you.
Yes.
When you first start,
Yes.
when you suck.
Yes.
And then when you start being good, they quit coming
stop.
out because they've seen your act.
Yeah, they
a
think
million
they've
times.
seen it all. It's never going to get any better than this. We did
No
this.
new
We supported
material.
you. We were good to you. Here you go.
I always tell everyone the cutoff is a year.
Yeah.
If you've been doing comedy less than a year, you can bring people out because everybody's excited. Billy's doing comedy. We got to go down to the bar, check him out. It's going to be great. And then once you hit that year mark, I've seen all your shit, Billy. You can go to hell. I got to work tomorrow morning. I'm not coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. So it's fun. I mean, the funniest guy in this town, I don't know, Dave Dyer, probably right
Sure.
here in Garnet. We'll just say Dave by default. He he can't get people to come out.
I mean, I'm
him.
from Hastings, so
Right.
it doesn't count.
Right.
Yeah.
You are out of the equation.
But from this town.
From this town, Grand Rapids, it's Dave Dyer. And I think other than like his weekend at Dr. Grin's, I don't think he could be like, hey, I'm going to be over at the Garage Bar. I'm going to come out and see me. Nobody's going to go see Dave.
Yeah.
It just isn't going to work.
Which is a shame. I wish it wasn't that way, but
Yes.
it absolutely is. Yeah.
There's so many distractions, right? There's so many other things going on in the age of cable and the internet and whatever. People just sit home and watch the new comedy special on Netflix,
Yeah.
right? That's what they're going to do. Like, why do I have to travel across town to see you when I can see Kevin Hart here on HBO?
And with all that stuff so readily available, it gives people a flawed conception of what comedy is. Like, every joke hits, every joke is the greatest of all time,
Sure.
every audience member sits quietly and participates when they're supposed to, and when in reality you go out and watch comedy at any venue,
it's a fiasco
it could just be
sometimes.
total nonsense. Like
I mean, well, that leads into this weekend. Tiffany Haddish ate a big, huge cock down in Miami for a huge show.
Yes.
And that's the thing, like, you don't expect from someone like that, because I'm sure everybody paid at least $40, probably more.
New Year's
to go
Eve in
see-
Miami?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure it was a lot more. And she, for whatever reason, just didn't click. And it was like, oh, my God, she bombed, this and that. And I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of Tiffany Haddish myself, but I understand, like, everybody isn't always going to hit every night. So
Yeah.
it's just a goofy thing, too, of like, yeah, everybody's going to kill, everybody's going to destroy.
right, yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't always work like that. So
Yeah, I was reading yesterday a post about her bombing, and she went out the night before and got drunk and didn't stay up. But it was just funny that reading the comments where people, I mean, half the people were mad about it. Another half, well, you know, she's gonna have bad nights and blah blah blah. And she bought drinks afterwards, and it was such a 180 on the different opinion of.
if I paid that good chunk of money too, I probably would be mad. Like, just as a fan member, I'd be like, I paid $80 or whatever to come see you on New Year's Eve. This is how I'm celebrating, and you're up there hungover or drunk
And didn't
still
think
or
enough
whatever.
to be prepared.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is that level of you still need to be a professional, no matter where you are, whether performing at Miami on New Year's Eve or you're performing in La Crosse, Wisconsin in April.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny just reading that, you know, and it's like, and a lot of people start, well, look at her credits. What has she done?
Yeah.
She really, it gets people to look at her career. Like, she really, other than doing some movies with Kevin Hart, What has she done stand-up wise?
I mean, that's what she's famous for. I mean, she started off as a comedian, as a stand-up comedian, but her skill set, I think, definitely lends itself to be like, this is a character, and we need to get this on film. And so much of what she's done, it's the same character in every movie, more or less, from the ones that I've seen, and it's kind of clicked well in a lot of it. But I mean, I don't know what people expect, right? Like, you can go see, like, Paul Rudd is a very funny dude on film, but I don't think I'd want to see him do stand-up.
Right.
Sure.
Well, you see that a lot of guys that were on SNL.
Sure.
You know, and they don't have a career now, so they kind of the fallback thing is to go do stand-up.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and it's like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of them, so I couldn't tell you. But, you know, some of them play grins.
Yeah,
You know, and
Tim
Rob
Ellis has
Snyder
come through.
and some of
Rob
these-
Snyder has come through. I know Chris Kattan tours a lot. I don't think he's been to Grins yet. But, you know, it's this. They're the celebrity comics.
Yeah.
Right.
And so everybody wants to compare you to the celebrity comic. The celebrity comic is a guy who's going to sell out a room, like Steve-O, Ari Spears, a lot of these
McCarty.
guys. Yeah, Darren McCarty, God, he's a hockey player. God bless America. But
Have you seen him do stand-up?
I have not.
Have you-
But what
No.
I've heard, he's not even really doing stand-up. It's him. He's up front. He tells a couple stories. He introduces other comics, and then at the end he'll go, "Oh, remember that time I beat up Claude Lemieux?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, thank you, and good night." Yeah, I mean, that's from what I've heard. He's not really doing jokes, but I can't blame this guy. He's cashing in on someone, on
Right.
something. Someone convinced him to go out and do it, and more power to him. More power to the people who are paying to go see him. So I mean, that's. If you're a venue and you want someone to come fill a room, I completely understand why. If Darren McCarty come in, or Ron Jeremy was doing a comedy tour,
Right.
And apparently Blake Griffith, the
Pistons
basketball
guy.
player from the Pistons, he's trying to do comedy. All these guys want to like step into stuff, and I mean, if they get people to come out and pay, I guess that works. But don't assume like Stu McCallister's not funny because you haven't heard of me, right?
He didn't play sports, so it
Yeah,
can't be
yeah.
funny.
I got to get out. I got to be a 50-year-old guy trying out for the Pistons or something, right? That's gonna happen, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing with sports figures. They put on a pedestal, and then when they say like, "Oh, I don't care for this politician or whatever," people are like, "Oh, it's gospel to him." It's like he's a freaking sports guy.
Right.
Who cares about their opinion?
Right. Yeah, I don't give a. You know, Charles Barkley is that prime example of the guy who's very mouthy and wordy about stuff. But I'm like, dude, you just played basketball forever, and now you talk about basketball forever. Like, I don't care what you have to say, right? Entertain me, but then whatever.
Yeah, stories about your accolades will only get you so far. If people are there to watch comedy, they're not there to see a rerun of, you know, I love the 80s or pop-up videos or whatever. Like, this is, they're here for jokes.
Right.
And
Jokes.
Yeah, I don't know.
And speaking of that, now when you meet somebody new
Yeah.
and they find out you're a comic, what's like the first thing they say to you?
Tell me
Tell
a
me
joke.
a joke.
Yeah.
Tell me a joke. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, no.
I have a good one for that.
Oh
though.
God, no, Brian,
No. This is, you'll appreciate this.
Okay.
When we're doing the show.
Oh,
that-
you have a story? about
Yes.
it? Okay. All right.
Doing a show at the riverfront, I would go in early to set up the room, rearrange the tables, all that. I live close by, so I'd go in like noon and rearrange the room. And I was in there one day, and normally people aren't in the bar at that time, but there was a guy in there waiting for his girlfriend or wife who was a waitress there. And he's like, "So you're the comic, huh? Tell me a joke."
Yeah.
And I go, "What do you do for a living?" He goes, "I'm in construction." I go, "Build me something."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He goes, "That's pretty funny."
Right.
I go, "There's your joke."
Hey.
Boom. There it is. I mean, that's how we're like. Is there anyone else that you approach and find out what they
Right.
do, and then be like, "Well, do it for me, prove it." Like I like some guys will be like, "Well, you got to pay me first." And
Sure.
I'm like, "Well, then throw me some money, and I'll tell you a
Yeah.
joke." Right.
Or they say, "Oh, I got a joke for you to tell."
Oh, my gosh. That's
It's
the
like,
worst.
it doesn't work
They're
that way.
usually racist, or they're usually just very old jokes.
I try to go as long as possible in any relationship that I'm in with somebody before I let them know that I even do stand-up.
Yeah.
Like, it's best to not go that route. Like, people at my work, I don't tell them I'm doing shows. I don't want them, because once they find out, then they're like, "I can't believe you don't do jokes about this all day."
Yes. Oh, this is
Like,
so
how could you
funny.
not just be mining material from your workplace all day long?
Because I hate this
Yeah,
place.
like, Marge, calm down. Like, this is not going to translate
This
to
is a
stage.
bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I hear you. I'm
yeah.
pretty similar too, man. Just keep everything on the down low. I don't want to talk to you about it. Because again, they all have the preconceived notions about what it is, of like you're making a lot of money, this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite jokes from Alan True is where he talks about like, I make $200 an hour as a comic.
Yeah.
The problem is I work half an hour a week. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it. If I could work 40 hours a week at $200 a pop, life would be good.
Absolutely, yeah.
The thing is, you have to drive long distance to work that.
Yes.
That's another.
There have been many gigs where I have lost money and or broken even. And it's just you're traveling 8 hours to earn that $200 or whatever. And then some places they don't put you up, so there's no hotel room or no one's feeding you or whatever. So there's all that garbage that people aren't thinking of. You know, I just drove 16 hours to do this crap gig because I'm stupid, I guess. I have this weird addiction to talking about my penis to people. So.
Right, yeah. And a lot of that, I mean, it only makes it worth it if you're riding with somebody or it's part of the experience and the drive and things. Right. But there is a certain amount of power with just saying no. Like, you've just got to get to a point where you realize that this is absolutely not worth it for me. It's not worth it for them. This is doing no good for anybody. Nothing's going to come from it, and it's just not. Right. It's not a good choice.
The more experience you become, the more you realize, like, I shouldn't do this.
Right. When you're young and hungry and doing shows, you know, you're doing open mics in different cities.
I'll sleep in my car. I don't care. I'll do it. I'm like, oh, God.
It's winter. I don't care.
Yes.
I got to get up for work tomorrow at 6 a.m., but, you know, I'll just power through. No big deal. It's Thursday. Who cares? Yeah.
It is amazing to think how many people don't think we have a real day job or whatever.
Right.
Or they almost think it's like you're not a good comic because you have another job.
Yep.
And again, like, one has nothing to do with the other. Like, I would love to only do comedy for a living, but it's just a struggle. And I think I choose to live a certain level of life that I can't maintain just from what I'm going to get from doing comedy.
Sure, yeah.
And comedy has changed just over the past 10 years. I've seen so many comedy clubs close, and nothing's kind of replaced them. And I think a lot of that is, again, of like people are spending their disposable income elsewhere, or they have less disposable income, or again, I'm watching on Netflix or wherever else. I don't have to go to a show anymore. But I try to tell people, too, it's watching Tom Segura, one of my favorite comics right now. I can watch him on Netflix, and I think it's great. But then when I go actually see him live, it's 1,000 times better. And it's just that experience of being there in the moment and knowing this will never happen again. These people in this room will never get together for anything else ever. Sure. And it's just amazing.
Yeah, the synergy of the room, other people laughing at the same thing, and just he's right there, you know.
Yeah, this very famous comic is here in this room with me for whatever reason. So.
Sure, yeah. And you also, like, from the other side of that, too, like, there's no cost of living increase for a comedian either.
Like they said it's decreased so much. Like, I hear, like, they used to fly in MCs to do shows. They get paid like $600 a week and get flown in. You don't get paid $600 as a headliner sometimes.
Right, yeah. There are like road dog headliners that I've talked to that they're making the same amount of money per show now that they were making 20 years ago. And to think that you can somehow sustain any sort of lifestyle just doing that is crazy.
Summer money too.
Yeah, summer money. God bless them. And that apparently that term originated right here in this town.
Jeez, I wonder who might have come up with that one. Well, I had one of those guys say to me once. I was sitting in the back of Grins next to one of them, and he goes, "I have 3,000 comics on my A list."
Right.
So it's a supply and demand thing, too.
Yeah. So it does become like, who is willing to work for less? And I think that is also a problem, too, because then you get guys who are like, I'm not going to do that for that amount of money. So you're going to get maybe less talented guys who will go like, yeah, I'll come headline a show for $75 or whatever. And so then you kind of get what you pay for, sort of. I mean, there's that level, too, of like, if there's a gig that's 6 hours away but it doesn't provide a hotel room, then if that's in like Duluth, Minnesota, I mean, who's going to drive to Duluth, Minnesota for whatever, right? And no room. So then it definitely limits the guys that you can get. So it's just an example.
And that's
crazy.
Part of running a show where I'm at from Hastings. It's difficult to get anybody to come out from too far away because there is no room involved. I don't have the luxury of offering a room along with the night, and I mean, the room sells out pretty consistently. So there's no.
It's a good room.
It's a good room, and it's a good experience for them. But I have no reason to up the budget. I have no reason to be like, let's get some bigger names in here because I'm selling out
the room as it is.
Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword. Like I would like to be able to give bigger names more money or to come to the room, but without there being that necessity of it. Like it's doing fine by itself.
As a producer of a show, of a ticketed show, then like that, do you think that you can up the price? Be like, I don't know, you sell tickets for $10, and so you want to have this X comic to come in, and now we're going to sell tickets for $20.
We probably could. We could probably get away with it if it wasn't a regular thing, but then it becomes, is it too much of a money grab? Do people lose respect for the room? Do they think we're trying to fleece them on something that they could be getting for a lower price? We essentially,
but I mean, if it's a name comic
if
that they
it's somebody,
might know, because again, nothing against you or the shows. Most of the guys who come into your show, super funny guys, but they aren't like household names. And everybody's like, oh my God, I'm going to go see this person.
Yeah.
It's like they end up, and this is what I like about your room, is that people will go to the show, they'll see it. That was a great show.
Yeah.
These guys were super funny, and I had a good time. So they trust the room. And that's what I wish more bookers did and more clubs did, of like, book quality people so people will come and trust the room and be like, I don't know who this is, but I know they're going to be good.
Rather than booking
Grins doesn't bring in crap.
Screech or Skippy or any
right.
like the
Ron,
names
Ron Jeremy
that
whatever,
you can't bank on jokes in that. Like you're literally just a name on a poster and it's bringing people in.
Right. And then they go, oh my God, that was garbage. I'm never coming back.
And that burns a lot of venues that way too. If you
ultimately
hype and produce a show that's supposed to be the greatest of all time to a venue, especially a new venue that's just getting started trying to do comedy, and it turns out to be total garbage, not only will it ruin the experience for the audience, but it ruins the experience for the venue, and they'll never want to do it again. And I've experienced a lot of places where they just are completely against doing comedy because they tried it once 10 years ago, and it was garbage. And so you just kind of have to stand back and go, all right, well, we'll try somewhere else and see what happens. And I was able to find a great spot where I'm at now.
Yeah. It's great.
But that doesn't happen that often, so I have to sort of ride this out as long as I can.
Well, I think, I mean, you'll ride it out as long as you want to because you're producing it, I think, correctly how it should be done. So.
Yeah, we could go more often. We could go higher ticket prices probably, but I think it's best to just kind of not overturn the cart at this point. We'll keep things how they're going.
Yeah, as long as you're selling out and you're getting a good show, why upset the apple cart?
Yeah.
And that's a great thing about, and Jerry Donovan's had great success with it too. Doing shows in smaller towns, these people don't want to drive to Grand Rapids for a show.
Right.
They want to do it once a month, and you get the same, I'm sure you see the same people.
Yeah,
that come
similar
out every
people,
month.
if not the same ones. Yeah, no park. You don't have to pay for parking. You don't have to drive downtown. Yeah.
The show in Lowell, Michigan here, Lowell is 20 minutes away from Grand Rapids, but the people who live in Lowell are not coming to downtown Grand Rapids. They're hill folk.
That's right.
The hill folk don't want to come into the big city, so we'll just go see.
We want to do it right here.
We'll do it cheap, and I'm going to drink my Bud Light. So I mean that's what it is. So I mean, he's able to give that town what they want, and he's done it very successful.
Yeah, and the same thing you've done now at Hastings.
Right. There's just nothing else to do, and they treat it like a night out, and that's what you want. That's the that's the audience that you want. Ideally, anywhere you go as a performer, you want an audience that's ready to laugh, that's taking this as a night out. They've invested. They've got a babysitter involved in it. They want to have a good time. They're here just to have a good time, and they don't care. In a lot of cases, I got a feeling they wouldn't care what happened up there. They're just there to drink and have an excuse to have fun with their friends. But it's the venues that it happens. Comedy happens in the same room as like the bar, or when you spring it on to people that are not there for comedy, and it's not as fun.
Surprise!
Yeah. Look what we're doing in front of you. Like you're
that's
interrupting.
Part of the bar owners. It's like, I've had people approach me about doing the show, and I'm real picky because I know what the room needs to look like and everything that has to happen. And you get these people that are kind of like, oh, you do a show, and but we'll have the TVs on, and we'll have pool playing in the background, and we won't have any lighting for the stage. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to fight something else.
Yeah.
There's more to it than just having a microphone.
Right.
Like there needs to be people who are actually paying attention, not all these other distractions. It's always nice when there's like a spotlight of some kind, or at least it's dark around the room. So
Stage,
Yes.
elevated above everybody else.
It's pretty simple, but there is more to it.
And the venue has to be on board too. Like the venue has to be involved with promoting and be willing to let people know it's happening in their establishment. If they're not willing to put up a poster or a table standee or any minimal effort, then you've picked the wrong place. I think like they have to be on board too.
That's what gets me. It's like I'm trying to bring people out to your business, and you're doing zero to support it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're going to make more money off of it. You're paying me the same thing to put on the show.
Yeah.
You want to bring more people out, and more people out is going to bring more people out the following time.
I think a lot of venues, almost rely on the performer to promote the shows. Like, they're like, okay, we're having the show, but now you guys get out there and let people know about it. And I'm like, I understand that, but there's still that level of responsibility of like, this is happening at our venue. Come to this venue. This is why you should be here. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to end up coming back. Because again, I mean, so many open mics I've seen and other shows have just died because the venue was not invested for whatever reason.
Right.
I had a venue once that I had a ticketed show at, and probably 12 people showed up for it. And one of the owners came up to me prior to the show starting and asked me if I had to pay the comedians. They're like, do I still have to pay these guys if nobody shows up? And
Yes.
yes, you do. Absolutely
That's
you do.
why you should have promoted it.
Yeah, this is not my responsibility to get these people in the room.
I'll tell guys, like, when that happens, because that's happened to me as a comic where they did not want to pay me. And I was like, hell no, because it's not my responsibility to get people in this room. If no one shows up, you still pay me. If this room's overpacked and oversold, you're still paying me, and it's the same amount of money.
Right.
You said you'd pay me $100, then pay me $100 goddamn dollars, right?
Right, yeah.
Like, I know you weren't going to give me a bonus if there were 1,000 people in this room.
Sure.
You'd be like, oh my God, this is the greatest night of our lives. Here's your $100. See you later. Right? I mean, that's just how it works out.
Right.
I will tell every new comic, get your goddamn money.
That's right.
And get it before the show.
Right. Oh, that's the best. When they pay you before the show, I'm like, are you new to this? Because I'm going to
Because they won't be around at the end of the show when you're looking
Yeah,
for them.
sometimes that does happen too. They're stalling for whatever reason. It's weird when that happens.
One misconception people have is that we do other people's material. Like somebody says, "Oh, you got to
right.
do this joke,"
Right.
and I kind of hit on that a little bit, but they just don't get that like you just don't pick jokes off the internet and go up on stage. And
It's not
talk about-
karaoke.
Yeah.
Like I can't go do Whitney Houston and everyone's like, oh my God, this is the greatest, right? I gotta tell my own jokes.
Sure.
And there was a time where there was an open mic in Hastings. It was one run by Emily Allen, and there was a comedian who was relatively new at the time. I don't know if you were in the room or not. Were you there for it?
Yes, I think I was.
This guy essentially did a Bill Hicks bit, like word for word, and he even did a thing where he like spit like Bill did in the bit, like a very particular thing. And I think all the comics in the room were just kind of stunned at what they were witnessing. And then he like immediately left because I was going to go tell him like, hey man, I don't know what you think comedy is, but you got to do your own stuff. Because some guys I think like that of like, I just tell jokes and get laughs. And so then I messaged him about it. I was like, you can't do that. And then it turned into a whole lot of nonsense. But you got to write your own stuff. You got to write your own, and you got to write frequently. And I would tell guys to write uniquely, right? Like write about yourself.
Find your own voice. Too.
And you also find people that try to put a twist on an existing joke and try to make it their own too.
Right.
And that's just not a thing either. Like you find people that are like, all right, well, they did it. When they did it, they were on an airplane. So I'm going to do the same joke, but I'm going to be on a bus. So
It's completely different.
yeah, this
man.
is my joke now.
Completely different. I would always tell guys if you have, if you see someone and you like whatever they're doing and you came up with a joke to go with it, fucking give it to them.
Sure.
Right? Here's a tag or here's an interesting perspective, because in that comic, then they can decide whether or not they want to use it.
Right.
But I mean, because clearly you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
that
you
is
shouldn't.
always right. It is always sad though when you see a comic that's either new or just not great, and they have a joke that's really good, and you almost feel like it's wasted on them, but you just absolutely can't
Right.
use that joke. But you feel, it's just gone forever.
Right.
It was a great premise or a great tag or a great joke, and
You screwed it up.
yeah, like you stole that from the rest of us.
Damn it. Right.
But yeah,